Yes, we're still in England, and there are some things I want to tell you about England. We were in the 8th Air Force, and we did some sorties over France for practice, and we didn't lose any airplanes, but it was interesting. And the food, I had to go to London for some reason from Bath, and I went in about 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and there was no chow line, so I got in line, and I saw all this good food, so I started ordering it. And he said, "How many steaks you want?" I said, 3. And he said, "Okay." And then, "How about the salad?" I said, "Put as much as you can in that tray." And he filled it up. And oh, fresh bread. Oh, I had about 4 or 5 slices of that. So I sat down at the table, started eating, got through the first steak, and it was very good, the Swiss steak. And then I started on the salad because I was filling up pretty quick. And I still had 3 more steaks there. So by the time I got to the second or third piece of bread, I was done. I couldn't eat any more. My stomach has shrunk so much that I was on a starvation diet at the time. And so it was, so the food, I wrapped it all up and took it with me, naturally. And that night, a friend of mine was supposed to meet me at the Palladium, which was a opera house. And I get there, it was after dark, and I was looking at the buildings, and I says, "Man, there's nothing wrong with it." I heard about all the bombings in London they had. I said, everything's still standing. So I never thought too much of it. And then I went inside, and no sooner I got inside, this fellow was the 31st. He had F-51s, and we ran into each other, and boy, was that a nice meeting. I hadn't seen him since Africa, and we had a lot to say. And he had a friend of ours that was from Joliet also, and we had a nice get-together. So, but then I got back to base, and we still had a lot of time on our hands because we were waiting to go someplace we didn't know where, and they don't tell us that ahead of time. So I started gambling, and I was playing blackjack and cards, and I was doing real well. There was high stakes in the dice games. So I decided to do so well in the card games, I'm going to try some dice games. Oh man, that was a different era altogether, because the dice games, they looked like professionals. They knew how to bet and everything. I lost. Not much, but I learned something. Stay away from them. So one night I hit it pretty big, and the next night I hit it again, and I figured I better quit. I'm ahead, way ahead. So I give all my money to my partner, Eldon Barker. And he knows what to do with the money because he had my address and everything. He put in money orders and sent it right to my folks. And I didn't have any more money, so I couldn't gamble. I did gamble after that, but I lost what I had, and I wasn't getting paid for another month or so, so I just said, well, this is the end of gambling. So we went on from there. And we're getting ready to go someplace. And I think the rumors were Africa, but because some of our people had taken off on boats, and they were gone for a few weeks, about 3 weeks already. And then one rainy afternoon, they said, load up. So we loaded all our stuff up, and them C-47s were really loaded with people, and and materials and everything you can imagine. So we got on that airplane. It was dark already, and we flew across the channel, across part of France. And the storms were so bad, the lightning was hitting the wings, and we're bouncing like a bouncing ball out there. And it was no fun. I had positioned myself laying down between two tanks. They put these two extra tanks right behind the pilot, and there was a V in there. I threw my blanket in there, and I stayed there for a good couple hours, but then I had to go to the toilet. So I got up and got back to the back of the airplane. Here's little Ollie, he's got his head in the bucket. And I said, move over, I gotta go. And so I started vomiting right with him. And then we just laid there for a while. And the crew chief comes out and says, hey, we're mushing, get up front. The plane was going down. It was altitude because all the equipment they had on and the weight. So next thing I know is about 4 or 5 guys there, and they grabbed us by our legs and drug us right up to the front of the airplane. And finally, I just fell asleep there, and I felt better because I did sleep a little, laying right in the middle of the floor. And so the next day we land. No, we didn't. Before we landed, I woke up in the one city that was all lit up. I couldn't believe it, and it was Portugal. And they weren't at war, so all the lights were on there. It was a beautiful scene. First lights I've ever seen in any city for a long time. And then we landed at Gibraltar. Well, Gibraltar, I couldn't eat very much, but I did eat a lot of grapes. Grapes felt good. And we were there for a day or so, recuperating. So I finally got well enough to get going. And we landed next day, we landed at Arzu. It's a little town in North Africa. And quite an experience. I have all these guys, they were there already, and they said, you got any sea rations? And I said, sure, here, take them, because nobody likes sea rations anyhow. And I find out they hadn't eaten for 3 days. They had run out of their rations. They had no provision to get them anything. Then find out one guy got shot on the invasion. And then we get to the airport. I mean, that's where we landed, at the airport. And they were shooting 75 millimeter cannon shots at the airport. And we said, well, I thought France or Algiers had surrendered. And something was wrong with the peace or the armistice or whatever it was, we didn't know. So we're right next to the airport, and we think they were shooting at us, so they said, dig some foxhole. And he said, how are we going to dig foxhole? We ain't got any shovels. We didn't have any equipment. So everybody got their helmet off. That's a steel helmet. It had a nice scoop on it, so I got down about 6 inches, and I said, well, that's all the further I'm going. I threw the blanket down and went to sleep. Then the next day, the first thing everybody had was what they call a baldy. All the hair was cut off their head. They'd keep clean. That was the orders. Cut all your hair. So everybody had a haircut, because the hair was long anyway in England. And this way, you could keep cleaner, and it's easy to shower or whatever you had to do to keep clean. And so we did, and then the next day they didn't shell anymore, and their airplanes were taken off there, and I heard they had surfaced a submarine, and they didn't have any airplanes to shoot at it. And none of them, why didn't they ask the Americans to do it? And nobody asked us to do anything, so let's let it go on. And I don't know whatever happened to the submarine, but they had it surfaced anyway, so somebody else must have got it. But wasn't much to do at that time, because we did get all the planes ready, and mainly we were going to strafe ships in the ocean, or submarines mainly, and we did some sorties out of there, not many. And from there we moved to another airfield later on. This is in February now. It was May 8th, and we were in the 12th Air Force now. So things were changed from the 8th to the 12th, and we didn't seem to have too much to do. So we moved to this new airport, and in January, and it was muddy, and it rained every day, so the airplanes couldn't take off anyway. So, but one thing about it, most of the farmers had wine in their possession, because it's a wine country, and there's a lot of vineyards around there. And so we got all the water, 5-gallon water tank filled with wine instead of water. So, and with not flying or having anything to do, we just try to. We're still in pup tents, and if you touch the pup tent in any spot, the water would come through, and it was terrible. I got to tell you what happened to me. When they stopped bombing us, it was the Navy. It was the Navy that was doing it, and we went in their headquarters, and everybody was taking everything they wanted, and a lot of them took a lot of silverware. And they said, "Well, that's worth a lot of money." So, but I saw this little mattress, about 1.5 inches thick and about 6 foot long. It was nice, all curled up. I said, "Boy, that'd be nice in the pup tent, because you're sleeping in that hard ground. It's hard to turn, and the ground gets pretty hard after you sleep in it for a while, especially if a rock is protruding it." And then you had to keep out of the water, because the water is all around you anyhow. You're like on a little island there. So, and mud. So everybody wanted that mattress. They thought that was the best thing anybody could have. And it was, because nice soft thing to sleep on, and it's off the ground, which is not wet and muddy. So it was pretty nice sleeping in there. We had a 30 days of that. And one day we got in there was an old barn of cattle barn. So we got in there, about 4 or 5 or 6 of us, and we started drinking wine. After 3-4 hours of sitting there and shooting the bull, and they said, "Well, let's go to eat." So we decided to go eat. And when I stood up, I couldn't believe it. I could hardly stand. And the rest of them were in the same shape, because we were drinking and having a good time and talking, and fighting a war, and doing everything. So we got up to the chow line, and we had the boots on. And the boots, there must have been like 6 inches of mud, wet mud on the ground. And every time you took a step, you'd sink in 2 or 3 inches. So it was pretty muddy out there. Get in the line, got my food, and I started for the table. We stood at tables. You never sat down. They were on horses, and they just had planks, loose planks on top of them, and that was our eating table. It came up to about your middle of your belly or something like that. So it was pretty nice eating like that. I hit that table. I slipped or something. I don't know what happened. I hit that table and knocked some food off the table. And all I remember is them saying, "Don't hit him, he's a sergeant. Don't hit him." Because I knocked all their food off the table in the mud, so. But that's about all I remember anyway. That time passed it. Then we went on, after it stopped raining, after about a month of rain, we got the airfield in pretty good shape, and start taking off, and we start having sorties, but we could only put up 5 to 10 airplanes a day, and they usually escorted the B-17, the 301st, which was stationed with us, the same airfield, the B-17s. I did say we were in the 12th Air Force now, so from the 8th to the 12th. From there, the first airplane got shot down, Captain Owens, and all I remember, I never saw a guy so darn nervous on it. I get up to him and he said, "Where's the cigarettes? Give me a cigarette, give me a cigarette." I didn't smoke, so I had to get cigarettes from somebody and give it to him. He was so excited. He shot down the first airplane, so, was he excited. So, I don't know, I must have said something wrong to him, because the next day, he comes, we're out on the flight line, and we're right next to the line, about 50 or 100 feet off the line, which is pretty close. And the airplanes were taking off. And this guy comes in pretty low. He's about 12, 15 feet off the ground. He buzzed us, and he comes along, and when he came down, I says, "Hey, what was you doing?" And he says, "I was buzzing you." I said, "How come you're on oxygen?" And he never said a word. So a few days later, I'm looking at this airplane coming. He's pretty low. He must have only been about 5 feet or 7 feet off the ground. And he had taken off and was coming back. And I said, "What the hell's that guy doing?" And he was headed right for us. And I said, "Let's get the hell out of here." And he went right where we were. He went right over us, about 7 or 8 feet high. And all the equipment we had belly tanks there, and they were nice and round, and we had other equipment there. He blew that stuff all over the place. And he, when he came down, he smiled, but never said a word to me. Not one word. So that was the end of that. It was fun. And he became an ace, Captain Owens. So this North Africa, the invasion of North Africa was May 8, 1942. And we had it pretty easy. I guess these guys in the boats, they didn't eat very well, and they were so overcrowded they couldn't sleep well. They had sleeping shifts, so they were out in that rough ocean. I guess it was pretty rough. So they were glad to get on dry land. Although when they were getting off the boat, one guy fell off the rope ladder and landed in the landing craft, so he got hurt pretty bad. So that was and the other guy shot. That's about the only instance they had. And being in the Air Force, you don't know much how to act to be an infantryman. So these guys, the captain knew he was in the infantry, so he took over and he knew what to do, and he spread every troops out and everything. It was just like being in the infantry, I guess. So. And then that airfield was too muddy, and it was unstable for the airplanes to fly on, so they decided to go to what you call Biskra, which is on the Sahara Desert. And we loaded all the train up with our equipment and everything, and the engineer says, "We can't go over the mountain with all this equipment." And all the guys in it, there must have been 700 or 800 guys on it too. And the equipment was old World War I stuff. It was 40 and 8. You either could put 40 people in a box car or 8 cows. That's why they call it 40 and 8. So, but they insisted to put on an extra 4 cars. But if we let them 4 cars behind, we never know we'd ever get it. So we go start up the mountain, and it wasn't making it. We were going about a mile or 2 miles an hour, and somebody says, let's get off and push this damn thing. So we all jumped off and we start leaving stuff behind. We lightened the load up. You got to remember that all they were burning is wood, chunks of wood, and they couldn't get enough steam to go over the top of the mountain. So finally it was going 2 or 3 miles an hour, and we were help pushing. We were doing everything we could to help them out. We finally got over the top. We got into the thing, and coasting down was nice. And we finally got to Brisker, which is on the edge of the Sahara Desert. You know, we were in an oasis out in the desert. And there's trees around. It was pretty nice. And then we had from the Atlas Mountain, we had a water in the wintertime, or the springtime, would melt, and the snow would melt, and then it'd go out, and the trees out there would get enough water to be sported. It was a nice area. And we soon found out, the Germans found out that we were there, and every night just about dusk, here they come, 2 or 3 of them a night, and they dropped these 300-pound bombs. But what we did, we dug foxholes. And the foxholes were, 6 feet deep, and it was easy digging there, so everybody had knife foxholes. Some went down and went to the side even. So the thing was, get on your knees, put your head against the side of the wall, and pray, and let them drop the bombs. So 300-pounders, they don't make much of a dent in the earth. They only go down about 4 or 5 feet, and they about spread about 7 or 8 feet. And if you're down low enough, you won't. I guess you don't get hurt. But this one guy in a B-17, he got at the B-17, and he started shooting with the waist gunner at these things. And I guess the pilot saw who he was and where the bullets were coming from, and shot up that 17 and killed the guy. So that was a bad deal. And then the worst thing there was we ate a lot of sand, because the Sirocco wind would come out in the afternoon, and the sky would be brownish black, and it'd cover everything, and it was pretty, the dust storm, that's all it was. And it'd get into everything. And we would put wood handkerchiefs around our face and stuff like that. But we kept out of it. We stayed in our tents. We were still in pup tents at that time. So, and the food was very bad. So, mainly we lived on hardtack, which was an English muffin, or it was a hard piece of cookie. It had vitamin and stuff in it, and they had wormy dates. Well, during the daytime, you'd eat it, and kick out the worms, spit it out, and then eat the dates. So it was a pretty good meal for us, and mainly lived on that. But we had sea rations, we'd use them too. So, and we survived that. And at night, you'd eat this guy would say, "What are you eating?" He said, "Oh, getting our vitamins now." Because you eat the worms and all, because you couldn't see the dates anyway. And you couldn't see the worm in the dates anyway, so it wasn't too bad. One guy got a 6 ounce of dates from California. He took a nail and nailed it to the bulletin board. California dates, that's what we're eating now. That's what he said, had a note on it. This is what we're eating. And it was no worms in these. So that's where it stayed for the rest of the war, I guess. And the airplanes really serviced like they come in tin cans, 5-gallon tin cans, and they would be full of gasoline, and then you'd have to haul that up on the wing, go up. We made wooden ladders and had to go up and fill the airplane with that. So, and then some of them didn't have any gas in it because they leaked out. Some had holes and they'd only be half full. So it was a terrible time for us. And it was hard to get 6 airplanes in the air at one time. Because all you need is something. And then we never had enough equipment or never had enough gas. And it was always a lack of something. It was very difficult. But there was one thing that we were outside of town about a couple miles, and we could go into town every once in a while, and what we primarily went in there, they had hot baths, and the hot baths were nice. The water was nice and warm, and then you get out of that and you lay in a hammock, and this guy'd come along and start rubbing your skin off you. And you get about as big as your finger, all the skin. And when he was done, you were really relaxed. So that was a nice time there, because we wanted to do it. That's the only way to get them clean. So, and one night we decided we're going to take the machine guns off the B-17s and put them alongside the irrigation ditch and shoot at these airplanes that come over dark. Because the airplanes, see, the Germans' airplanes could land at their airfields because they were lit. In we didn't have any lights in ours, so if airplane went out, he would never know how to land anymore. So, or where to land. So they had a big advantage of it. So this one night, they said we're going to get raided. So we got these machine guns, we had them alongside the ditch and we were ready to shoot them. And they says, oh, no shooting tonight. And we couldn't figure it out. And when it was about dark, the next oasis was about 5 miles from us. They must have bombed that to heck. I don't know if it was another airfield or what it was. We didn't know. We never knew whatever happened. But they bombed the wrong one. I guess they were supposed to bomb ours, and they bombed theirs. So that was a nice thing. Another night, just before dark, here comes the airplane strafing us. And he came pretty low. And we're all in foxholes with our rifles. And can you imagine about 1,000 guys shooting their rifles at him? And we said we got this guy. We never seen him pull out, and we never seen the airplane hit the ground or anything like that. But we know he couldn't, because we know we hit him, and he's pretty low. You could even see the pilot, and that's how low he was. So, I know I hit that airplane. I swore I hit it. And whatever happened to it, we never got credit or anything, so that was the end of that. And then one night, the B-7s went up, and one never came back. And sort of gave up to it. And just before dark, here comes an airplane, coming in real low, slow, and he landed, and the airplane broke apart. The tail broke off of it. Tail section, the whole section broke off. What happened, one of those 109s crashed into him and damaged, split the airplane in half. And it wasn't until he landed that it affected the airplane. So he got back just before dark. That's pretty good. So that was a nice place to live, and everything got better there. And we started knowing how to take care of ourselves a lot better too. So we managed.